Good morning and welcome to River Rock's Daily Devotion. My name is Matt, and today we're going to take a look at Galatians chapter 5, verses 7 and 8. And I'll go ahead and read those for you right now. You ran well. Who hindered you from obeying the truth? This persuasion does not come from him who calls you. So we'll take a look at verse 7 and see exactly what Paul's trying to convey here. As we start off, you ran well. Paul uses run or running quite a bit as a metaphor through a lot of his teachings. Imagine, if you will, an athlete who's running a race, not a sprint but a marathon. And a marathon takes consistency and dedication, and that's what he's talking about here as far as running well. When the Galatians first became Christians, they ran with principle of grace. And the word well indicates that their running with the principle of grace was honorable and becoming of them. There was a sense of excellence in their attitude about grace. Paul points this out in various other verses. Galatians chapter 2, verse 2, as well as 1 Corinthians 9, verse 24, where Paul states, and I'll read that, "Do you not know that those who run the race all run, but one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may obtain it." So Paul, this is one of the first times that Paul actually singles out the individual as opposed to the group. And the prize, what's the prize he's talking about? Well, I'll get that towards the end when I go to finish this up. But let's continue on with verse 7. So he talks about being hindered. What do you mean by being hindered? Well, hindered also means to cut into or impede your progress. And this was happening to the Galatians at this time. They were being hindered. Their hindrance was actually a false persuasion. It wasn't from God. It involved the church and individuals that were infiltrating the church. And these individuals were trying to enforce or push the Mosaic law in the Old Testament on the Galatians. From obeying the truth. Obeying here is more along the lines of trusting the truth. The Galatians were disobeying the truth that they were fully forgiven and accepted by God. They started to believe the lies that they must do more to be right with God. We'll go on to verse 8 here and take a look at verse 8. This persuasion does not come from him who calls you. First and foremost, Paul wanted to get across that this persuasion was not from God. It was from these individuals that had infiltrated the church, and they were the Judaizers. The Judaizers got in, and these Judaizers were a group of early Christians who believed that Gentiles had to convert to Judaism in order to be considered Christians. They also believed that circumcision and the Mosaic law were necessary for salvation. Well, we all know that's not true. But Paul wrote about this persuasion earlier in Galatians in chapter 1, verse 6 and 7, where Paul said, "I marvel that you are turning away so soon from him who called you in the grace of Christ to a different gospel, which is not another, but there are some who trouble you and want to pervert the gospel of Christ." So God is not the author of legalism. He is the author of grace. Salvation is God's work, and it is a work of grace. God calls us to grace and grace alone. So as I conclude here, I wanted to go back really quick to 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24. And when Paul's talking about the prize, he's talking about the imperishable crown, the life in the age to come, salvation or God's kingdom. So this is from my heart to you. We are all running a race of sorts, yet it's not a sprint but a marathon. And in a marathon, it's not about speed, but it's about consistency and dedication. Our faith is something we need to do in a consistent and dedicated manner, and not let anyone or anything let us deviate from the righteous path that we are on. As for grace, we cannot earn grace, and we cannot buy grace, and we cannot barter with God to receive grace. The only thing we can do in regard to grace is receive it gladly. So with that, thank you for joining me this morning for my first devotion at River Rocks Church. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. May you all have a blessed day. Thank you.